One thing, this is my opinion. Nobody come for me on IG, please. It is my opinion. I promise you, it's only my opinion, and I know it's not law, and I know it's not fact.
Hello, we are here with Cinnamon Denise. Cinnamon like the spice, Denise is in Denise, and we are here to answer the age-old question, what the fuck is a music producer? So, what is it? What do you do?
So what I would say, there's so many like aspects to that, but just a starting point would be, in its simplest form, a music producer takes an idea, like a musical concept, and is able to kind of expand upon it via like using instruments, using a producer's mix. We can talk about that as well, but using like the inspiration from the original song. So sometimes songwriters are producers, and it kind of gets melded into one. But in a lot of processes, the songwriter is purely that, and they work with a producer to produce their song. One thing, this is my opinion. Nobody come for me on IG, please. It is my opinion. I promise you, it's only my opinion, and I know it's not law, and I know it's not fact. I think a beat maker is different from a producer. And I think there is a distinction, and I think they're both arts in their own right. I think beats are like, you're making something that is kind of more accessible to be used by more people, and a production is very much specific to whatever piece of, like, whatever song or whatever track or whatever piece of music that you're creating. So I think those kind of require like two different skill sets, very much so, because you're really kind of catering to the songwriting process, and it's like a collaborative thing. Whereas a lot of beat makers will make beats and then maybe sell them, and then a singer will like top line over it, right? So you're not going back and editing the production unless that's something you agreed upon. So I think there is a big difference between the two. One is not better than the other. They're just different, and I don't think they're the same thing. But as far as production, like usually it helps if you have some sort of like arranging skills. And it doesn't mean you know how to write charts for a big band. That's not what it means. It means you have an ear to like listen for what's going to push the song forward and add like value to the song. So yeah, thanks for the question.
So there's like a difference between, if you're a pop star and you need a producer, that producer is going to work more in that pop realm with you and work on keeping your song to 3 minutes and making sure that, every 8 measures I've heard recently, every 8 measures, something happens, something changes. Whereas a producer for maybe a rock band goes in and just makes sure that, this guitar parts that you're playing kind of fit together, or the drummers appropriately playing what they need to, and kind of guide the band to their artistic vision. And I think that's where people get confused, because beat makers also, like you said, they do something called leasing beats. So that's where like the beat stars and things like that come into play. So if you go out and buy a beat and you say, oh, this beat's $30, that's a steal because my producer wants to charge me $500. It's because you're the 50th Joe Schmo to buy that beat today. And so I would say that there's like a difference between like mass production versus like someone producing you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing too, or that like the first argument that I thought someone would have to what you said, and then basically my counteraction to that would be, oh, well, I bought the exclusive rights to this beat. And it's like, well, the money you just spent buying the exclusive rights to the beat, you could have bought a producer. So there's that. But even then, like, depending on the beat maker, right, they may not be willing to like cater to your song. So if you have a 16-bar verse that you wrote and the beat that they made has an 8-bar verse and then it goes into the chorus, what are you going to do? And that starts to like really mess with like the creative process. you know, because now you feel, because now you are bound by the terms of whatever beat you bought. And so now it's like, now you're spending all this time looking for beats that have an 18 bar verse when you could have like worked with a producer or contact that beat maker to adjust the beat, right? Which sometimes maybe they do. I don't really know. It probably depends on the individual. But then you're starting to ask them to like be more of a product. Like it's just it's a thin line, but I do think there is a distinction for sure.
Yeah. And also when you buy a beat offline, I've noticed that most of them come like mixed and mastered. So you're having to like return it down and compete with the mix they've already made too. So it's not like you don't get this fresh multi-tracks to be able to manipulate them how you want to make the vocals sit in. So that in itself is an art.
Yeah. And there's so many other things too, like the tempo, especially for a singer. What about the key that it's in? Oh, this is a great like chord progression, but damn it if it ain't in my like key, like the range that I need it to be in, right? So what are you gonna do with that? So there's so many things. And then do you really like, what is actually the process with that? Because do you write a song and then try to go find a beat, or do you find a beat and then just try to write to it? And both, there are like restraints in that, in both of those processes. So if you're wondering like, why should I pay a producer $500 when I can go find a beat? Well, the reason is because it's gonna be a tailor suit versus like a random suit that isn't your size that you have to go get tailored anyway. Like, you know, that's the difference.
Yeah. And like I produced a song where we got through the whole thing, and she came back and said, you know what, I can't fit my chorus in here. Can you remove this instrument? And I'm like, yeah, we can do that. But if you buy a beat that's already bounced down, you can't just pull out that piano. And you really get your song. You really get, like, when you work with a producer, you get two things. You get your song the way that you want it and in your vision. And then the other thing that you get is you get somebody watching over you for, like, they're not going to let you put out a 15-minute pop song to play on Spotify, and they're going to, like, kind of watch your back a little bit on stuff like that. Do you find that it's important as a producer to constantly be listening to new music and, like, trying to get to know the trends and stuff like that are going on? Or do you just manipulate it to the artist?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit of both. I feel like you always want to be learning because new stuff comes out every day. And how can you be an expert in something if you don't stay, like, up to date? Like, I would not, like, I hope my doctor knows what COVID is, even though it's in, you know what I'm saying? Like, I hope you know what it is. Like, have you not read up on it? Like, what are we?
Yeah.
So I don't know if that was the best example, but you get what you get the point I'm trying to make. Like, but I feel like that's why too. And so many people are like, I don't listen to the radio. I'm like, well, why not? Maybe you don't like the songs on the radio, or like they don't listen to pop or whatever. But I'm like, I mean,
there's every station.
Yeah, there's multiple stations, and also it's just another place to find more music. Like that's all it is. You don't have to like it, you don't have to dislike it, you don't have to agree with it, you don't have to any of that. Like it's just information. Like a doctor doesn't go, well, I don't like COVID, so I'm not going to study it. You know, like what are you even talking about right now? So when people are just like, I don't listen to the radio because of whatever reason, I'm just kind of like, well, I mean, Billboard's still a thing.
Top 40 is still a thing.
Right. It's still a very much thriving thing. It's still real. So, I mean, if one of your goals is not to be on Billboard, whatever, that's fine too. But it's important to know what direction music is trending in. and even start to know like some of the things that people are doing.
There's a lot of creativity out there right now, like especially in pop. Like sometimes I'll pull up the Spotify top 40 and just start listening through and see if there's anything I like. And, but weirdly, I really like Ariana Grande's producer. I haven't looked up who that is yet because I haven't gotten that far, but like every song she's put out, I'm like, that's good. Like the way that it changes and the way that it like always captures my attention when you would want to hit skip. There's something else that's like popping on. And listening to the radio is awesome because you get to hear new stuff. I found this awesome song today. It's by Doja Cat and I think Sweetie. It's called Best Friend.
Mm-hmm.
I heard it on the radio and I ran inside and I pulled it up on YouTube and I played it for my wife. I was like, oh my God, have you heard this song? Like, and it was good. It was really good. But I think, yeah, it's important to listen to the radio because you can also like get ideas, get inspired, and also know what you don't like. So I don't like
COVID.
I don't like COVID.
Right. Yeah, I think those are like the main things about production. And the thing about production is like there's so many ways to do it. I feel like there's a producer for everybody because there's so many just different ways to do it and different ways to approach it. There's not any rules. There's just really not. That's why I found like the most fun with production for me. It was because I was a songwriter trying to top line over beats. And I was like, this doesn't fit. Like what I wrote.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to learn how to produce, which is not like an overnight thing. Of course, it's an ongoing thing. But once I started doing that, I started having a lot more fun because I was like, this is how I wanted it to sound. Like, yay. This is what I meant, this is what I meant to say. And production for me has been very liberating. It's been very frustrating at times. I'm like, why isn't this you feel like you're not getting better? And then you listen to something from 2-3 years ago and you're like, okay, wait, yeah, actually I'm better. So yeah, so it's one of the coolest things to kind of like explore for me.
Yeah, I got into producing because I couldn't find any people to play music with. And I really wanted to write my own stuff. And so I got into it when I was like, oh, MIDI? What is this? Oh, samples? What is this? This is like game changer. And I got to make my extremely weird creative music. And people started liking it and then buying it from me to use. And I was like, okay, cool. This is awesome. And so if you're self-producing, what advice would you give to somebody who's self-producing on making sure that their stuff is like sounding good and radio ready or popular?
I feel like it'd be the same with like almost any other aspect of it. It like have reference tracks, because as much as you'd like to think that you like that you're just like, yeah, I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna start. I found that whenever I have a reference track, I go back to it and I'm like, okay, this is the way the kick sounds. This is like the pattern they're using on the hi-hat or whatever, and like reference it. It puts you back in focus. Like it puts you back into the right direction. And it doesn't mean that your reference track is going to end up sounding like just like it. It's just giving you direction. It's like a prompt for an essay. If you start writing your essay and you're like, wait, what was I talking about again? You go back to the prompt. And that doesn't mean that you rewrote the prompt. It just means you're focused again. So that's like the advice I would give. It's just like find reference tracks to inspire you, but to also guide you into what you're using. And then even like a lot of producers, like you can find them. Like that's the magic of like where like I don't even know how to explain it, but basically you can pretty much track anyone down. So, I mean, if you find that someone's producer, like of an artist that you like, find them, start to see if you can connect with them, and even just see like who else they're producing, right? Because more times than not, they're not just producing one artist. So just kind of taking from that and then seeing like their journey and learning their journey. I get a lot of inspiration from learning about like artists' autobiographies. Because like, for example, some artists that I know that I really love that play guitar now and they're like 40 or whatever, and they're amazing singers, they didn't pick up the guitar till they were 35. You know, and like stuff like that it's kind of inspiring. You're like, wait, what am I doing? Hold on, let me pull my shit together. Like, hold on a second, you know, and you're just like, okay, I get inspiration from individuals' autobiographies, and do the same thing with producers, because it's like cool to see their journey and then kind of compare it to yourself. Like, okay, so they were about 34 when they started producing. They're now 50, and you know, it's kind of like measuring up. You're like, actually, I am in a good spot. Yeah, you know, and that's encouraging. Yeah. So, yeah.
And common misconception is that all producers mix and master. That is not true. So make sure if you're hooking up with producer that you ask them in clear language, you know, are you also my mix engineer? Because that is not always the case. So make sure that is brought up. So thank you so much for talking to me about talking to the world about what a producer does. I think that really cleared it up. I get asked that question a lot. What does a producer do? They just make beats. And so it's good to kind of talk about the difference between a beat maker and a producer and an electronic pop producer. And there's all the way to metal producers. So it can be a little bit of everything. But yeah, tell the world, if we want to hire a dope producer like you, Cinnamon, how do we hire you? What do we do?
Yes. So I'm really easy to find and cannot hide from the FBI if I tried. So
Google game on point.
Right. Google game is on point. I'm pretty much on the first like 5 to 10 pages of Google. If you just search Cinnamon Denise, I respond to all my Instagram messages on IG as Cinnamon Denise. There's no underscore numbers or anything like that. My website is cinnamondenice.com. And yeah, I think those are like the best places. So Instagram would be good, and my website, and just Googling as well. You'll be able to find me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll catch you later.
Thanks, Jam. Peace.